Hello and welcome to Conf42Cast, the tech podcast from a neighboring galaxy. My name is Miko Pawlikowski, and today with me I have Rotem Refael, Director of Engineering at ARMO, armosec.io, the makers of the open source Kubernetes tool Kubescape. Rotem, how are you doing today?
Hey, good morning. Here it's morning. I'm okay,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
morning for me too,
How are
even
you?
more of a morning. I think I'm a couple of hours behind you. 8 a.m. for me on a Sunday. Thank you so much. I heard the
Uh,
traffic was pretty bad this morning.
yeah, it was horrible. I don't know what happened this morning. Maybe it's just Sunday morning, multiple traffic. But okay, I'm here today, so I'm here
Yep, that's the
now.
most important
So
thing.
we're
You
good to
made
go.
it.
Yeah.
Well, our conference is space themed, so hopefully one day all of that will be irrelevant, and the only traffic you're going to have to worry about is on your way to Mars to find a parking spot. So, like all other guests of
Yes,
this
indeed.
podcast, I'm going to confuse you first and ask you if you could go faster than the speed of light, where would you go?
So I would probably visit Mars. As you said before, I will avoid traffics, of course. But anyway, it's super interesting, to visit the galaxy. And it's super interesting to visit Mars just because of the shape and that we don't know as much as about this planet. So yeah, probably go there, just visit, make some shoppings with some aliens there, and that'll be fun.
Some Martian shopping, but beating the traffic
Yes,
first.
exactly.
That sounds fair enough to me. Do you think they're gonna have Kubernetes
Yeah,
on Mars? Are we gonna move on to something
they
else? They
must.
must. Okay, fair enough.
They need to deal with tons of traffics when people will arrive there, right? So they have to load
They have to
balance
load
it
balance it.
somehow.
Okay, so for everybody who hasn't seen Rotem do talks, she speaks about Kubernetes quite a little bit. So maybe a good starting point will be to ask you, as of today, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly from where you're sitting and where you're working with Kubernetes?
That's a really good question. And I think that let's start with the good stuff,
Hmm.
right? Because there are a lot of good stuff. The good stuff is that there is an orchestrator for your application called Kubernetes, and you don't need to mess with any other, infrastructure. It's pretty straightforward. Every cloud vendor has their own. Like if you're installing it as a cloud vendor, it's even easier, so your apps can run, replicate themselves, and you don't need to worry as a developer, right? You don't need to worry about load balancing. You don't have to worry about replicate my application. So everything is in place. It's also open source, which I'm a big fan, so it's also very good initiative, I would say. Um, and I think that's the thing that makes Kubernetes like a huge thing, because the developers don't need to work regarding the infrastructure, mainly. On the other hand, if I'll go to the bad and maybe combine it with the ugly, then you know just having a cluster running, it's not seamless, right? You need to work for it, and there are issues there in order to bring it all together. um, Making it on premise, it's really hard. Like I've managed a couple of those, and it was, I would say, even horrible. It was really, really hard, not having any cloud provider running it for you and making it all as a DevOps. It was hard. And I would have to say that the fact that Kubernetes is all by its own out there, and there are no such real competitors, that one makes it the maybe the ugly thing, because You have just the Kubernetes thing. You don't have any other platform you can use. I mean, not a good one, in my opinion.
So a
So,
monopoly is a problem here. That's the ugly part you're saying?
yeah, I do think that when you have competitors in the market, that makes you even better. That makes you think about what they're doing and what I'm doing and how to be better in what I'm doing. And in that case, I know it's an open source and everyone can contribute. And that's, I think, again, that's the good part. That's the best part of it. I think that making another application or platform like Kubernetes, not just live, but with security built-in things and some other stuff, can make it even better than what's now.
Definitely. Yeah, you opened some old wounds. In my one of my previous lives, I actually ran Kubernetes as a service for a large company, and yeah, it was not easy just getting it to work, despite the fact that
Yeah,
in
yeah.
theory you just take the elements off the shelf and you run them. But from like the security point of view, which I think is probably like one of the most interesting aspects, because the people who are very pro Kubernetes will tell you that at least outside of out of the box experience might be better, because at least it's containerized. Maybe we've got some better settings, out of the box. How true is that claim really from what you're saying?
I mean, if we'll get to the security perspective, then that's really interesting, because I've heard from so many people that listen, I just moved to Kubernetes, so I'm totally secure, right? Wrong. It's like people think that's the case, but it's basically not. Even worse, I mean, if they are not aware of the security perspective in the cluster, then they are exposed as they can be when running it on VMs or in any other platform. So security perspective, you have a lot of issues. Of course, you need to operate the RBAC, and you need to see what exposure to outside the cluster you have, which network do you have there. There are a lot of things to cover when it comes to security. That can be covered also when you're not running Kubernetes, right? You're running on a node, on a Linux node. You have to have the SE Linux applied, the hardening things. All those things are still valid when it comes to Kubernetes. It's not like, okay, I'm running on Kubernetes and it's just a magic thing happen. Of course, it's magical, I know that, but you still need to pay a lot of attention to security.
Yeah, and in fact, for years, people were running as root inside of the containers because, hey, what could possibly go wrong? So would you say, like,
Exactly.
net is Kubernetes a net positive, an improvement, or is it more of a regression in terms of security?
I do think that it's improvement when you know what you're doing. I mean, operating, for example, the RBAC,
Hmm.
right? Let's take that for example. You know who has the permissions. You don't need to manage that yourself, right? In like a different platform, you have it internally, but you need to operate it. You need to be aware of what Kubernetes is and what's the benefits of
Yeah,
that. So, in case you do know that, okay, which is not that
complicated.
how would I say that? Yeah. So in case of what you're doing, then of course I think it's a big lift, but but again, you need to be aware and you need to take that into consideration. If you're using that, then you're more secure than being without Kubernetes, in my opinion. But again, you need to work on that, and that's the key, in my opinion.
Okay, so I don't want to spoiler things too much, but there's gonna be a certain talk called "What We've Learned from Scanning 10,000 plus Kubernetes clusters." That Rotem will deliver. I think by the time this airs, it will be already available. Do you want to spill a little bit the beans on what you found there?
Yeah, of course. I will give like a little
Hmm.
teaser. I would say, when checking all those clusters using Cubescape, like we rank Cubescape on all those clusters, and we've seen that 100%, listen to that, 100% of clusters have at least one misconfigurations,
Hmm.
um, which is a thing, I would say. Not all of them are critical. There are some medium and low, but I think that it's still under awareness that there are misconfiguration. We are writing our Helm chart. We're applying some other Helm chart, third parties Helm chart, and we don't know what's written in there, right? You just want to run, I don't know, Prometheus, right? You just ham install Prometheus, that's it, right? It's
Yeah.
so easy, but you don't know what's inside and you don't know which vulnerabilities and which misconfiguration you're entering into your cluster in that moment exactly. So that's, a small teaser of my talk. I will talk about other, which misconfiguration have we discovered and which vulnerabilities have we discovered and how relevant basically those vulnerabilities to your clusters. And that will be interesting indeed.
I'm definitely watching that talk, and you can find it at conf42.com. Hopefully, we do the timing right, and this is a true statement. So let's talk a little bit about Cubescape, because you teased that, but for everybody, well, they probably already picked up from the context that they can do some security stuff with it. But can you talk a little bit about the project? I know it's open source. I know when I went to armsec.io, there was a nice animation like putting things in red, kind of like an X-ray scanner. But can you talk about how the project came to be and what it's actually focusing on, and how much of a success you're having with people adopting it?
Well, that's a really nice story because I think a year and a half, it was August, and we saw that NSA just published the report of what a secure Kubernetes cluster is, and then we checked it out and we said like, oh my god, we have that. I mean, let's just have a small tool checking that, and let's make it open source, for the community. Just a small thing. I mean, we just want to run some automation,
Yeah.
checking the NSA report for compliance. And then we took that out, and I think in 1 or 2 weeks we had like thousands of stars in GitHub. And then we knew that we're doing something that people know that is a pain. I mean, that people are asking for. And then we continue and check for compliance on the MITRE framework, and also some other frameworks that we created. I mean, like ARMO Best and DevOps Best, like tested that we know that are crucial for your clusters. And we took it even further, and we're showing you the full RBAC map on a graph and checking whoever has like a domain cluster roles, and whoever has like root access, as we talked before. So it's very, very nice to see how we grew, across this 1.5 year, something like that. And we're also showing for vulnerabilities and, CVEs that detected inside the cluster. And like if I can have another teaser, we're just releasing some kind of a relevancy feature that says, I don't mind about, I have like 10,000 of vulnerabilities, right? It's so many vulnerabilities inside my cluster. I'm not going to check every one of
Yeah.
them, right? But the thing is, not all of them are really relevant, right? Because the attacker can attack when something is in the memory, when we're actually using. He won't attack something that is just a side. Let's have the busy box, for example, or things like that that are just, with the container, and we're not using it at all. So everything that is in the memory, we are really checking if this image is relevant and if this package is relevant. And then we're saying to you, hey, listen, you have 10,000 CVEs, but only like 50 of them are really, really relevant and can have like a solid ground for the attacker. And that's something that I think will change the market, in my opinion. And it's coming really, really soon.
And is that a free feature too, or I guess the question is, you obviously have to pay yourself salaries from that. So I'm wondering which bits do you get from just the open source version, and which bits do you pay for?
So we're not doing it as a paid
Hmm.
feature. We are just, the open source is an open source at all. The pricing model is, it depends on how many worker nodes you have. Up to 10 working nodes, it's free of charge. You can use the ARMO platform, the UI, everything, that's for sure. Up to 10 working nodes, then we have a pricing model that it's very fair and working like that in the market. So that's, the pricing model that we're up for. And again, it's free, 10 working nodes, then you can go ahead. I'm sure that most of us, as you know, people that are trying our Kubernetes cluster don't have 10 working nodes at home in our laptop, and that makes it great, and everyone can use it.
Definitely. I'm curious if you maybe can give me like a short version. If you go to like a managed Kubernetes offering, you go to Amazon or Google's and you just get the default cluster, how secure would it be according to Kubescape? How happy would Kubescape be out of the box?
Well, we've checked that as
Hmm.
well. Um, it's pretty much secure unless you're trying to have some other application inside of it. They are operating the RBAC, as default, as far as I
Hmm.
know. But there are misconfiguration that relates to the cluster itself. Not like in a high priority; they are pretty much low. But I would say that if you're getting some cluster from a managed service without anything on it, no application on it, you didn't apply anything on it, it's like, I would say it's very low risk. Okay, but we do found, I can say that we do found some RBAC violation in GKE. For example, like I think 6 months ago, we opened a ticket for Google. They fixed it in the next version, and it's really great, But that's the thing, that you can just see that, visualize it. So that's easy to check.
Speaking of easy to check, how does one get started? Did they install a random chart from the internet?
No. Well, in order to install CubeScape, we do have a Helm chart, which is super easy to install, and then it's making the first scan. I think in 1 or 1.5 minutes, you do have already
Hmm.
data of misconfiguration and vulnerabilities, and also the RBAC graph. So just install the Helm chart. Of course, all the pods are running, and then it's in the UI. You can see it in the UI, and also you can just run it as a curl. But I recommend to run it as a Helm chart so you can see the visualizing in the UI and everything. It will be easier.
Definitely.
And all of us like UI, so
Oh, we
yeah.
do. We love UIs. Okay, fantastic. So I'm guessing they go to armosec.io and they click the Kubescape button, or maybe they look for Kubescape on GitHub directly. I see 8 plus
Exactly.
K stars, which should be enough to get people to trust it initially. Um, One of
Yes.
the things that I just can't help myself, but what's up with the space panda on the Armo website?
Oh, this Panda has a long way. When we, created Cubescape, then we thought about nice. I would say nice marketing animal, because animal are what people likes,
Hmm.
right? I like pandas. I like animals, and it's make it as a tool. Really, I would say um, cute in
Yeah.
some way, but it's not something that we said like, yeah, cubescape, there is panda underneath it. No, we thought it was really nice to bond those together, and that's what we did. And then we took it really forward and make it a space panda, and we will have a new design of a panda in the next cubecon. So we have like a guard panda, and we had like an angry panda at the early stage, and we're just playing around with this panda, and it's really cute. So I
Yeah, I
love
think
it.
we could all agree that pandas are objectively cute. But I do have the scene in my mind now where you are in a white room and you wrote down some animals, and then you're like, "No, panda, panda, it is. It's way too cute." So I'm guessing that's what must have happened.
Yeah, you need to combine security with something cute, because security sounds to people
Scary.
like very like rough thing, right? Like very hard, and like it's so stressful. So let's make it a bit calmer.
Love it.
You will see your insight, and that's it. You'll see it with the nice panda around that, and you will feel
No, no,
good.
you sold me on that. Yeah, panda makes it definitely softer and cuter. Yeah, that explains everything. But tell me a bit more about ARMO in general. How did you end up working there? I think you mentioned a year and a half ago. Is that when the company started?
Well, we started a company a few years ago. We're still into the also the runtime
Hmm.
security. That's how we're doing also the relevancy thing. I got to ARMO about 1 year and a half, approximately. I worked at Variant and as my previous company. What I did there is basically make the transition of
Hmm.
all the applications there from running on VMs to Kubernetes. No
Yeah.
one knew what Kubernetes is. I needed to convince people to use that. It was it was fascinating to do that. And that's why I'm also here in ARMO, because I'm so into detail. And when they told me, come join this startup, we'll make like great things together. And, I have two passions, security, cybersecurity, and Kubernetes in general, and DevOps. Just combining those two together, I couldn't say no. So that's where I am. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here. It's a great company to work at. People here are great, and they are very much familiar with Kubernetes. They are very professional. All the developers and all the people here are very, very
Wow.
professional,
That's a
and
good
it's really
testimony. I'll
enjoyable
make sure
just
to send them the
working with those
episode.
people.
How big are you?
Please,
How many
I
people?
love them.
Oh,
Currently in Armo, we're around 40, 45 people, something like that. Still a small
going
company,
fast.
but we
Okay.
got bigger in this year.
Perfect.
Very, very bigger.
So, for everybody who
Yeah.
wants to learn more, again, that's armosec.io. Where else should they get their news from? Where should they follow?
Exactly. So you can also follow us on Twitter. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. You can just enter to Cubescape, get a page, and also get things from there. That's the main platforms that we are on. But going to armosec.io
Okay, perfect.
will
And
bring
for you
you
personally,
all
Rotem, how
over the
do
place.
people
So
follow your
just get in there.
adventures? Twitter, LinkedIn?
Yeah, Twitter at Rotem Refael 27, and LinkedIn just find me. So I'm mostly there, LinkedIn
Okay,
and
perfect.
Twitter. So just
And
follow
to close this
and
off,
DM.
I usually ask people a single question, but I'm actually going to give you a choice of two questions. So your option A is, what's the skill or technology or language or tool or something that you would focus on or watch out for in 2023? Or option B would be, if you were to choose one thing that you did for your career that you think provided you with the most value, like a single item that you can think of that you did. And it could be anything from learning something to buying a tool to reading a book. What would you choose? Option A or option B? Ah, there we go.
Let's I can answer both, but let's start with option A, with option B because it's I can have it like that. Um, well, I do think I was a developer for a lot of years.
I'm so
I was a
sorry.
developer. I developed Java. I developed in C sharp and like some UI stuff. And then I got the option to move to a DevOps team, like infrastructure team. And I thought about it a lot. And, it was like, what should I do with my career? Going that path or going that path? Like continue developing whatever I know or start something fresh new. I was already around 10 years in the industry and it's really frightening, to make that kind of a change, but I did made it, and making that change make me who I am today. And what I have to say is, don't afraid of changes, right? It's really frightening in the beginning, but eventually it can give you a lot more than you already know, and give you some more value, and it will, you will get interest by it, and if not, you can always come back, right? So that's what I said, and that's what I'm always thinking about myself in my, in my career. What have I done wrong and what have I done right? I think that one I've done right. I won't get now into the things I got wrong, but
Perfect. That's a really nice answer.
but yeah, that's my two
And
cents.
really sorry about the C sharp. What's the other? What's the question to the answer to the other question? What could you do?
15 years ago, what you
Okay,
can do
perfect. And
now.
what's the answer to the other question?
Exactly. Well, I do think that we need to pay attention of the AI, right? Everything's going on now with the GPT and how we can embrace that, this technology to infrastructure. I mean, I don't think we're there yet, but I do think that if we need to take a take for 2024, then I think that GPT and AI combined with infrastructure, that
Yeah,
will be
that's
the
hard to
thing
miss. Like
for
my Twitter feed
2024.
at this stage is basically
Um,
ChatGPT mixed up with
right.
GPT-4. It seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, I think that the key will be that, making tools based on GPT-4 for, you do have Terraform and you do have like automation tools, to have like a whole environment, but just think about writing, please run a Kubernetes cluster with this Helm chart, and that Helm chart running on AWS, and then you have like a full sandbox running. Um,
So what you're
just
saying
think
is that
about it.
instead of running
I think we'll
Kubescape,
get
you'll
there
be
pretty
asking
soon.
ChatGPT, "Hey, how bad is my cluster?" I will tell you instead.
Well, actually, we made something in our platform. We did embed it like the Chat GPT.
Hmm.
in Cubescape in the UI, so you can make your own tests. Like you can run in free language. Please tell me if I have root access in my cluster, and then he will write it in Rego, which is the language that we are using, for testing, and you can just run it on your cluster, and that's it. So we're getting there. That's just one, and that one we did like with a hackathon and something really nice here in the company in just one day. So I think that if we will have some more, not just here in Cubescape, right, like all around, if people will take the GPT and AI in general and combine it with automation for automation things, and that will change, I think, whatever we're doing today.
That will be a scary day. Scary but exciting.
I know.
All
Yes.
right.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Okay. Rotem, it's been an absolute treat to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming. I'm definitely going to try out Cubescape, and I think a lot of people should too. If not for anything else, they should go and check out the Panda. I'm currently looking at it. It has a helmet, it's on some kind of planet, and it's planting a flag. And it's absolutely, maximum cuteness in there. Thank you so much for coming. And
Yes.
for everybody else, once again, armosec.io. I think it was Rotem Refael 27 on Twitter.
Yes.
Thank you, and see you next time.